Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Managing Data Privileges, Progress OpenEdge Dynamic Data Masking. Today, we are joined by our speaker, Sunil Jardosh. Sunil has been with Progress for over 12 years. He joined the Progress development team in Hyderabad, India, and contributed to Progress OpenEdge SQL engine. He has worked on features of OpenEdge SQL engine like subquery optimizations, autonomous update statistics, and user-defined functions, to name a few. He has a patent US in the area of join query optimization. Currently, he works for the ABL language group at Progress in Burlington, Mass, and is involved in dynamic data masking, AVM memory profiling, and OpenTelemetry support for OpenEdge. Before joining Progress, he was actively involved in academic research and worked as an assistant professor and research intern at various universities and research institutions. He earned his PhD in the area of wireless sensor networks from Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communications Technology, India, and has published research papers at various international conferences. I'll now pass it over to Sunil to start the presentation.
Thanks, Rachel. This is the agenda for today's presentation. We will start with business needs. Then we will go through what is DDM. And once you decide to use DDM, what preparation you need to do to roll out DDM. Then we will go through the terminology used in DDM. And we'll see how to configure DDM in OpenEdge 12.8, followed by the demo. And then I will show you some documentation pages. And then we'll open up for the question and answers. Okay, with that, let's start with the business needs. Recently, we have heard from many of our customers that they must meet the regulations to meet or to prevent the sensitive information viewed by the unauthorized user. For an example, if the organization is keeping the credit card information, then if the authorized user sees the information, then that user sees the credit card information without any masking. But if any unauthorized user sees the information, then he gets the mask value. That's a business need, and it comes with a constraint. As organizations have a legacy application with them, it might not be possible for them to change their application code. Also, they do not want to change the data at the database level, as it adds performance overhead. So the solution should be a configuration based and must meet the performance and availability needs. Now, to meet these business needs, we have introduced dynamic data masking in OpenEdge 12.8. The solution is configuration based. What you are coding is the configuration, so no change in the application code or the application data in the database. Further, as all the configurations are done through online operation, the solution fulfills the need of high availability. And as we are not changing any database records, so that is negligible overhead of masking. So that's how the DDM meets the constraint and solve the business needs. Now let's continue to explore more about the DDM. DDM enables you to meet privacy and integrity compliance requirements such as GDPR, HIPAA, PI, PEDA. It is compliance feature for helping you obscure or mask personally identifiable information. So it's not a full-fledged security feature, it's compliance feature. And it's part of Progress Advanced Security Package. Now further, it's a field level configuration. So as soon as you apply DDM configuration to the field, it locks that field. It is closed access model. So any user who tries to read that field gets masked data. Then question arises, who will be able to see the field data? For that, we have introduced a role-based access control system. A role or a privileges are granted to the user to unmask the data. So if user is granted the privileges, then that user sees the unmasked data. And if you are unauthorized user, then you will see the masked data. So that's a role-based access control system. Okay. So we have gone through the basics of DDM, Let's see what kind of preparation we need to do to roll out DDM. First of all, we need to identify what information or fields are categorized as a sensitive information. Second, who is allowed to view the sensitive information? For that, let's walk through a sample application called Employee Information System. This application has a single or common user interface. Okay, and obscure or mask the sensitive information based on the user login. So we want to implement this application where we have a common interface and information is masked based on the user login. First of all, let's see what information this application shows to the user and identify what are the sensitive information in that. So on this application screen, we have a contact information for the employee, how many leaves they have, what benefits they are getting, and their SSN, Social Security number. Here we have a three categories of information. You have public information accessible to all, protected information accessible to few users, and highly sensitive information only available for the limited access. Now, out of this information, the contact information is a public information available to all. Leave and benefits are the protected information, and SSN is highly sensitive private information. So we have already addressed the first question, that what part of the problem. Now see who part of the problem. Okay, so we have a different categories of user. We have a HR managers, HR staff, and a managers in the system, and then the rest of the all employee. So the HR manager will be able to see all the information. So if you are a HR manager, if you are working as an HR manager, you will be able to see all the information. HR staff will see only few fields like leaves. And in the same way, manager will be able to see the benefits, but they are not able to see the SSN information. While if you are as a normal employee, then you won't be able to see any of the mask information. So here we have addressed the who part of it. Who are the user that will be able to see that information. Now let's see how to use the DDM for the employee information application. What we need to do for that. Before going into what we need to do, let's go through some of the terminologies we need for the DDM. First, let's see what is mask. Mask is a way to hide data from unauthorized user. It's a field level configuration, and the generated mask field value is field type compatible. So as shown in this example, we have a credit card information and it is a character field. And once the mask is applied on the field, the generated mask value is also of type character. In 12.8, we have introduced four types of mask configurations, namely partial mask, null mask, literal mask, and default mask. Let's see one by one them. Start with the partial mask. Partial mask comes with the configuration that allowing you to specify what portion of the field you want to mask and what portion of the field you want to keep unmasked. It has a three parts: prefix, middle part that covers the mask character, single character, and the maximum number of mask characters, and the last part is suffix part. The prefix and the suffix part says what portion of the prefix and the suffix you want to keep unmasked, and the middle part says what masking character you want to use and for how many characters. For the credit card example, we have kept the last four characters as unmasked character. And for the email example shown here, we kept the first prefix character as unmasked and the last four characters as unmasked characters. And the rest, all of the character are masked with the four asterisk characters. Next is null mask. Here, the entire field value is replaced with the null value. In the case of literal mask, the field value will be replaced by the literal value specified in the mask. And the last one is default mask, where each data type has its own default mask value. For example, the integer field type has a default mask 0. So when the mask is applied to integer field, the field value is replaced with the default mask, that is default mask value, that is 0 in the case of integer. And these are the various places where we are applying mask. We will go through them later in the later half of the presentation. So the next important term we have is the user defined roles. For the DDM, you define the DDM specific role. For example, we have 4 different types of user in the system. We have people working as a HR manager, we have people working as a HR staff, and we have people working as a manager. And the rest are all considered as highly valued employees. For each group, we define a separate mask or separate role. In this case, we have 3 roles: HR manager, HR, and the manager. The next important concept I want to highlight is authorization tag. Authorization tag is a link between the role and the mask field, and it must start with the DDMC. Now, as prefix indicates, DDMC means who can see this field. In our example, we have 4 fields, and we are assigning different tags to these fields. A field could have more than one tag assigned to it. In our case, SSM has the field SSM, that is Social Security Number, has a tag DDMC private, and we are configuring the default mask to it. In the same way, we have created a tag DDMC protected field group 1 and assigned it to field leave and the literal mask L and 4 lines. Lastly, we have one more tag, that is DDMC protected field group 2, and we have assigned this tag to 2 fields. That is part of a benefits. That's medical field with the medical plan field with the null mask and stock grant field with the default mask. Now, once you apply mask to this field, the field is locked. So who can access this field? You need to give keys to this lock to that role. So metaphorically, authorization tags are keys that allow users to see the unmasked data. In our example, to the HR role, we are assigning the tag DDMC protected field group 1. So anyone or any user who has the HR role will be able to see fields that are marked with the tag DDMC protected field group 1. In this case, field leaves. In the same way, we have assigned tags, and the tag for that field is only assigned to HR manager role. So only people who are assigned HR manager role, only they will be able to see the SSN field, and the rest of the user won't be able to see that field. Now let's see the connection between these different terms. So roles are granted to the user, and each role has a tag assigned to it, and the tag is also assigned to the fields. Now, user who has granted a particular role will have tags for that role, and as they have a tags with them, they could able to see the data of that mask field having that tag. As discussed in our previous slide, only HR manager will be able to see the SSN field, as only HR manager role has a DDM C private tag assigned to it. The question arises, who will be able to feed this configuration in the system? So for that, we have introduced a new administrator in the system called DDM administrator. We have added this new built-in role to fulfill the requirement of separation of concern. Some organization requires separate administrator for all the DDM related configuration. They might not want to use security admin for that task. So it is not the mandatory for you to use a separate administrator for DDM, but it is recommended. The DDM admin is responsible for activation and deactivation of DDM features. They can grant and revoke membership of DDM roles and manage DDM tags. Also, DDM admin is responsible for assigning mask and tag to the field. Security administrator become the DDM admin if no user is granted a DDM role. So in your system, if you do not have any user who is acting as a DDM admin or not granted a DDM admin role, then by default, the security admin is a DDM admin. He will be able to perform all the DDM related operations or configurations. So this is the summary of preparation step needed to roll out DDM. Identify the sensitive fields that will be covered under the DDM feature. Identify the tags and masks for that field. Identify roles, define the new role and assign tags to them. And finally, identify users for that role. So we have completed our preparation. Let's see how to configure it in the OpenEdge 12.8. For that, let's see what tools are provided in OpenEdge 12.8 to configure DDM. In 12.8, we have introduced a new built-in role for the DDM admin that's called _sys DDM admin. Also, we have enhanced ProUtil with the new commands to manage this feature. We have enabled DDM admin, activate DDM admin, deactivate DDM admin, and disable DDM. Once you enable the DDM, you are able to add DDM related configurations to the system. Then once the configuration is done, you activate the feature with the DDM activate. Once the feature is activated, then only unauthorized user will see the mask data for the mask field. If you deactivate the DDM, then it preserves the configuration. But before you disable the DDM, you need to remove all the DDM related configurations. Now, what about the configurations? So to feed the configuration in the system, we have provided a new service that is DDM Data Admin Service. As we saw in our previous slides, we need to add a new user-defined roles in the system. For that, the DDM admin service provides APIs, create, update, and delete roles. Next, we have authorization tags. For that, CURD APIs are provided in the DDM service. And lastly, for the mask, DDM service provides set DDM configuration and unset DDM configuration. In the future, tooling will be provided through the OpenEdge Command Center to configure DDM into the system. So at this stage, we have completed our preparation for the employee information system. We know all the tools we needed in OpenEdge 12 to configure DDM for the employee information system. Now let's start configuring it on the database. For that, we have an instance of Spots 2020 database named DBS 2020. We have added SSN field in the employee table and also added these users into this database: security admin, DDM admin, Mr. HR manager, Miss HR, Miss manager, and the rest of the world. The rest of the world represents all the other users in the system. Now let's start configuration on this database. So step one, enable the DDM on this database. For that, we have ProUtil command, ProUtil DBS, that's server database name, -c command, which command that is enable DDM. So with this command, we are enabling the DDM feature on this database. The next step is the optional step, but it is recommended step that you add a DDM admin to the system. As soon as you enable the DDM on your database, a new built-in role that is _system.admin _system.ddm.admin get added to your database. In this code snippet, we are using data admin service and we are granting this system admin role to our DDM admin user. So here we are saying that, okay, get role, which role _sys.ddm.admin, get user, which user, DDM admin, and then we are calling the API create grant role. What it is doing, it is granting admin role to the user DDM admin. Now, once the DDM admin user is there in the system, he is the responsible for adding DDM related configurations to the system. No other user will be allowed to add that configuration. Only those users who has a DDM admin role assigned to them, only they will be able to configure the DDM related configurations. Now, next, see what roles we need to add to the system. For that, we have API create role. We need to add 3 roles in the database. In this code snippet, we are adding HR manager role to the database. The same way we could add other 2 roles, that is HR and manager. And here we are setting is DDM to true. That means these roles are the DDM roles, and the roles will be added as a security admin. So we have enabled the database, we have granted DDM privileges to the some of our user, and then we added the required roles to the database. Now the next step. Next step is we need to perform, if you have a DDM admin in the user, if you have a DDM admin in the system, the next steps are performed by the DDM admin. Now, in this case, in this code snippet, we are assigning a DDM C private info tag to our HR manager role. So we are saying we are adding a new tag, or we are assigning a new tag, that is DDM C private info, to which role? HR manager role, and say create tag. And the same way we could add the other tags in the database. So now we have completed the adding tags to the database. The next step is assigning mask and tags to the field. So in this code snippet, what we are doing, we are saying it set DDM configuration. The API is set DDM config. Which table? The employee table. And which field? SSN field. What is the type of the mask? We are saying it's a default mask. And with what tag? We're saying that use the DDMC private info tag. So here we are locking the field with the default mask, and we are saying that use or roles which have DDMC private info tags are assigned to them. Only those roles or only users with that role will be able to see this field. So at this stage, we are locking our field. So we have configured our fields. In this case, we have configured the SSN. Same way, we can configure leaves and benefit. Next, we need to grant those roles to the user. So in this code snippet, we are assigning HR manager role to our user, Mr. HR manager. So you can get role, which role, HR manager, and to which user, Mr. HR manager. And we are using the same API that we use to grant DDM admin role. We are saying the create grant role. So it will be granting HR manager role to Mr. HR manager. So at this stage, we are done with most of the configuration that we needed to configure DDM in our database. Now the last step is turn on this feature. So for that, we'll use activate DDM. Once the DDM feature is activated, then only your unauthorized user will start seeing the mask data for the mask field. So how it works? So in this example, our client is sending this query to the server. The server will reach out to the database and fetch the rows from the database. At this stage, data is unmasked. If you need to protect the data at this stage, you should enable transparent data encryption on the database. Now, this rows will be passed from server to client on the wire. If you need to protect this data over the wire, then you should use secure communication between the client and the server. Now data reaches at the client, and in our query, we have used a by clause. That means we want this data to be sorted on this field. And in our configuration, we are saying that this is the mask field. So at this stage, still the data is unmasked, and the query processing engine is sorting this data. So if you see the order is changed, now the leave 10 record is at the top in the list. At this stage, the next statement that we are executing is the display statement. So here, when the data moves from the buffer to the presentation layer, at this stage, the mask will be applied. So if your user is unauthorized user, then the display statement will display the mask data to this user. Next, we'll see that in this, what are the other places where the masking will be applied. So as we saw in our example, that we need the query processing engine need to sort that data. So the processing engine will always see the unmasked data. So the query processing engine can always see the unmasked values. But the mask column or mask field will remain masked when they are displayed on the screen. When they are assigned to a timetable, so we are exporting this row to the time, or you are copying this rows to the timetable columns, then you'll be copying the mask data. If you export this data to the file, if the unauthorized user is exporting this data to a file, then the mask data will be exported to that file. Same way, if unauthorized user is referencing the mask field into the conditional statement, then the mask value will be used in that conditional statement. If unauthorized user is passing this data, or passing the mask field as a parameter to the user defined function or procedure, then the mask data will be passed over there. And finally, if the unauthorized user assigns this mask field to the variable, then the mask value will be assigned to that variable. Now let's see all this thing in an action. We'll move to the demo at this stage of a presentation. So I'm opening up my screen, and let me start this application. This is a sample application I have built for the demo purpose. The actual tooling will be done through the OpenEdge Command Center in the future. Uh, at this stage, let's see our application Employee Information Center. So here we are seeing on this system, we have employee information, contact information, and I have used the color to represent the mask field. Our SSN, it is protected field, showed in red. Vacation days, protected field showed in yellow. And the other two fields, that's pension, 401k, and the stock purchase plan, that's also colored, and those are the mask field. So if I at this stage, with a get information, all the information is unmasked. Let me change the user, rest of the world, get the information. At this stage, this user is getting all the unmasked information. And present DDM is not enabled and not activated. So let's go and enable this feature. So I'll go ahead and enable DDM. Let me start my demo application. So you can see that feature is enabled. Now, as a step one, we will add roles to this system. So let me add HR. There is my HR staff new role. The role is added. I'm adding one more role, that is HR manager. Is the HR manager role, and I'm adding a simple manager these roles. The new DDM related roles are added to the system. So you can see we have HR manager, and the manager role added to the system. Now, as we are managing the role at this stage, let's grant this role to the respective user. So you say my HR manager grant roles. So I am saying that Miss HR, this is my Miss HR is a part of HR staff. So I'm granting that role to her. That's done. Then I'm granting Miss HR. She is the HR manager. So I'm assigning this role to her. Miss HR, I'm assigning a manager role to her. That's done. And to Mr. HR, I'm saying that he's a HR manager. That's done. Let's see. Miss HR has assigned HR role. Miss Manager has been assigned manager role, and Mr. HR Manager has a HR manager role. So we have added the DDM role and have assigned those DDM role to the respective user. Now next stage is assign tags to these roles. So HR, we are saying that DDM C protected field group 1. Okay, that is our leave. Who else could see? HR manager also be able to see this information, and manager will also be able to see this information. Then my manager, say DDM C protected field group 2, okay, will be able to see all the fields which have this tag. That's done. Who else will be able to see those fields? My HR manager will be able to see those fields. That's done. Now for the HR manager, you can see the DDM, see private. Only he could able to see the all the fields which are marked as private. So we are assigning this tag to HR manager. Done. Let's view those tags. My private tag is only assigned to HR manager. Field group 1, that is leave information, will be visible to HR manager, and manager. And my other protected field, that is the benefits, are only visible to manager and HR manager. Good. So we have assigned tags. Now let's set mask on those fields. So in our employee table, we have SSN, and that is a private. We are assigning tag private, and we say this is the mask for that field. Done. We are assigning literal mask to the employee field SSN with the tag C private. So all those users who have this tag assigned to them, they will be able to see that field. Next, in the employee table, I have leaves, and that is field group 1. And we say we'll assign same mask for that field. That is done. We configure benefits 401k, that is field group 2, same 9. That's done. So my managers and HR manager will be able to see them. And the last field in the benefits, stock purchase plan, again field group 2, and we are done. Let's see what we have. We have benefits at the field group 2, and this mask we have assigned to our manager and HR manager. SSN is a private tag and it's only been assigned to role HR manager. And the employee, the vacation field has a tag field group 1, and this tag we have assigned to HR staff, HR manager, and the managers, so they could able to see that thing. Okay, done. Now let's go and set the rest of the world and turn on. See what's there. Still we are seeing we have configured the DDM, but still we are for the rest of the world. That's all my employee. The data is still not masked because the feature is configured enabled but not activated. Yes, feature is still not activated. So go ahead and activate that feature. So I can say activate DDM. It has been successfully activated. Check the status. Yes, it's been activated. And open the application again. Get the employee. And now at this time, when we are getting the information as the rest of the world user, that means this user doesn't have any role assigned to it. We are seeing SSN as a mask, vacation as a mask, for our benefits as a mask, but the rest of the public informations are available to him. Now let's change the user and say Miss HR. She's HR staff. Let's see what information she could see. Get the employee information. SSN is still masked for her. Benefits are still masked for her, and vacation. She could able to see the vacation because she has field. She has a tag field group 1, and this field has same tag on it. So my Miss HR has a role HR. That role has a tag C field group 1. So she is able to see the fields which are marked with the field group 1, in this case leaves. Next, see the Miss Manager. Miss Manager has a role manager, and as a manager she has access to leaves as well as all the benefits because the 401k field and the stock purchase field has a field group 2 tag, and we have assigned these tags to the manager role, and Miss HR manager has a manager role with her. So she is able to see vacations, pension, and purchase and stock purchase, but she does not have private tag assigned to her. So she's not able to see the SSN. SSN is still masked for her. Now the last, our HR manager, who has all the tags assigned to him, and let's see, he's able to see the SSN because he has that tag. His role has that tag, vacation and the 401k and stock purchase plan. He can cancel thing, can go back to the rest of the world, and for him all the information is masked. Now let's deactivate this feature. We are turning off this feature. Check, yes, it's turned off. Let's see with the same user, get the information. Now we have turned off, and the rest of the world will able to see all the mask field. So that's how we are able to configure a DDM on this employee information system. I will go back to presentation. So you've seen this in action. Now these are the steps to configure DDM onto the database. Enable DDM, create DDM admin role, create DDM related roles, assign tags to these roles, assign tags and mask to the field, grant DDM role to the user, and finally activate the DDM feature. And with that, the unauthorized user will get the mask value and the authorized user will see the unmasked value. Next, these are the some of the resources that will provide you a more information about the DDM in OpenEdge. I will just click on this page, and this on this page, the DDM service examples, you will find all the examples or example code snippet that will help you to configure DDM on your database. And if I click on the setting a mask, so in this page we have a code snippet where we are calling a set DDM config API to configure a default mask with the tag c DDM secadmin on field address of table customer. So likewise, we have all the examples here of related to role, related to tag, and all the other configurations. So at this stage, we have finished with the major content of the presentation. And if you have a question, then we'll start with the Q&A session.
Thanks, Sunil. So now we're going to transition to the audience Q&A. So we have many questions coming in. I'm going to get started. Sunil. So first question, can I have more DDM admins on a database?
Yes, you can have more than one DDM admin in the database. So when you are assigning a DDM admin role, you can assign it with the grant permission. And once has been granted, he can assign more more DDM admin to the system. So the answer is yes, you can have more than one DDM admin in your database.
Great, thank you. And what is the default DDM after DDM enable?
I mean, if the question is who is the default admin for this configuration once this feature is enabled. So before you add any of the DDM admin to the system, the security admin is a DDM admin. He will be able to perform all the operations related to DDM configuration. So as soon as you enable the feature, you have a security admin system who will be able to perform all the operations. And once you add the DDM admin to the system, then that point onwards, all the DDM related configuration only be done by the DDM admin. He will be able to do the DDM related configurations.
Great, thank you. And does an employee have the ability to view his own data like an HR manager? If so, how would they configure?
Uh, this is a field level configuration and the and the row levels of that. This row is belongs to me. That kind of information is not there in the system. So he won't be able to see it. For this particular example, the employee user won't be able to see its own. It will be masked for him, that field. So no, it is field level configuration, not you don't have a row level control over that. Entire field, entire column is masked for you, so he won't be able to see. The employee won't be able to see his information on the in the setup. Once the field is masked, that his own row will be masked for him.
Okay. And can you explain the sorting of masked fields?
The query processing engine. This engine will be seeing the data as unmasked data. So for that engine, it will be, for our example, we have field that is leave field, and we are applying a buy clause on that field. Now suppose the user is the rest of the world, and he wants to see, and he is sending that. He is asking for that information. So in that case, the query processing engine will apply all these steps over. That means in this case, the sorting part of it, the data will be sorted on unmasked data, and then the data moves to the display statement in our example. At that point of time, the data is moving from the buffer, that means the query engine memory, to the client's presentation layer. At that point of time, the masking will be applied. So there he will be able to get the mask data, but the entire query processing happens on the unmasked data.
Great, thank you. Next question. So you have covered the ABL, but what if we configure DDM to the database? Will it be applied to SQL as well?
Yes, good question. Once you configure this feature on the database, then it will be applicable to the SQL as well as SQL as well. And if you are if you are using the ABL through the pathway, then also this feature is applicable. So once you enable this feature on your database, activated that feature, masking feature, then whatever channel you use to access your data is a SQL client or ABL client or a pathway server, you will be getting your unauthorized user will get the masked data and your authorized user will get the unmasked data.
Thank you. What happens if we enable DDM on the 12.8 database and 12.5 or 12.4 clients connect to this database? Will 12.5 and 12.4 clients get the masked data for unauthorized users?
Uh, Once you enable this feature on your database, then your lower and your 12.2 or 12.5 client won't be able to connect to the 12.8. So no, those clients will not be allowed to connect to this database where the DDM feature is enabled. So they won't be able to connect to this database.
Great, thank you. Are there options or plans to allow custom masks?
Uh, at present, we have this partial mask and the literal mask. In the partial mask, you can configure this mask basically it's allowed on the character field. So in the character field, you can configure your mask. So there we have an example. In our example, we have a middle part where we are specifying what is the masking character and for how many characters we have those masks. So the partial mask, it has an option of configuring various things. In our credit card example, we unmask the last four digits of credit card. So partial masking provide you the configuration. Second, the literal mask. In the literal mask, you can specify whatever the mask value you want to replace as a field value. So in our example for this is we have used four nines. And if it's a character field, so we can say okay, instead of 49 we can say literal mask, so it will show up the field is mask. So the literal mask and the partial mask will allow you some flexibility to configure your mask in the database.
Great, thank you. And can we use this feature with PASOE?
Yes, as I told, we can use this feature with once you enable it on your database, you will see the effect of it, whatever channel you use to access your data.
Perfect. And if a user cannot see a leaves field, would they be able to assign a value to that field?
No, if user is not allowed to see it, means if the field is masked for that user, then that user will not be allowed to update or change the mask field value. So if any unauthorized user will try to update the mask field, it will get an error.
Great. And how much is the impact in performance in large tables that implement masking for the end users?
Uh, Here at the presentation layer, we are applying the masking part. So it will be very negligible.
Great, thank you. And could you elaborate more on the DDM admin role? How is the DDM administrator different than the security administrator?
Uh, See, it's a separation of concern. Uh, Suppose you in your system or your organization wants that only a limited group of people should have access or have ability to configure this thing. Then their role is only allowed to perform this task, that is configuration of a DDM. Then it will help them. It will help you to have a separate DDM admin. How it will help? Because of the DDM admin, those users will be having only privileges to the DDM related configuration. They won't be having any other additional privileges. So that will protect your system. They don't have any elevated privileges with which they could able to do perform the other perform. So they won't be having any other privilege. So that's why it will help. You don't want them to have any additional privileges like the security admin has. So that's why it would be good to have a DDM admin. It is recommended to have a DDM admin so that he will be having only that much privileges that is required for his role or for job.
Great, thank you. If I have to set up a replication, do I need to configure the DDM on source and target both databases?
Yes, you need to enable DDM on your source and replication.
Great, thank you. And you said DDM configurations are online. Once the mask is added to the field, how long does it take to be reflected in the system?
Basically, this feature is backed by the DB Notify feature. So as soon as you add mask to field, or you activate this feature, as we saw in our example, immediately we'll see the effect of it. So if this is as soon as the DB, as soon as your notifications are pushed to your client and they consume it, you will be able to see the effect of it. If you have a long running transaction at your client side, then the effect will come after the end of the transaction. So as soon as you have a next transaction starts in your client, you will be able to see the effect of a DDM on your client. The special case is DDM this DDM disable. As soon as you disable the feature, all your client get notified and they will see the effect of it. So based on your DB notification configuration, your client will get the effect of the configuration as soon as they will get the notifications.
Great. Thank you, Sunil. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you have any more questions, you can get in touch with us at Progress. So thank you so much for joining the webinar. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great day.